Well, I wish the movie would talk more about swords and stones. It seems to
Didn't.
be entirely about Merlin, actually.
Yeah, I looked up some of the because the Google AI overview did me kind of dirty on the
It tends to
source
do that,
material, and it
doesn't
didn't
it?
tell me that this was part of a novel that ended up being the first part of the Once and Future King, which like I've heard of that, right? Like I
Yes.
know that one. I've seen it all over the. I've never read it, but I've heard of it. I didn't realize that this was like an adaptation of the first part of that. So I spent like a good like, portion of Black Friday running around to a bunch of different bookstores being like, "Hey, you have any like compilations of the Arthurian myths or legends or anything like that?" And every single one of them was like, "Huh. Yeah, no, I don't know. We don't really we don't keep those around. We don't have them. Yeah, we can order them, but like, but they all had the Once and Future King, but I was like, I don't know, like that maybe." And then I just blew right past it. So I did not get a chance to review the source material. I only
Well,
reviewed the Wikipedia article. Um,
how dare you? You failed. You failed us, Hugh. You're
Here's a
supposed to be the one that reads. Supposed to be the
I
reading one.
you know
The
I
nerd archetype of the two
yeah,
of us.
that's
Because of
that's me
course,
because you
because
can't
of
read.
course. No, it's
You are
true.
a little known fact. You're illiterate, functionally
I do
illiterate.
my best. I try. I give it the old college try, but it just hasn't worked out for me thus far. No. For shame. It seems like fun for reading and everything.
Yeah, yeah, sometime maybe you should get around to it at some point. That way you can stop leaving me messages that say Hugh is bastard man.
Hello, hello, fine people in the chat. We're continuing the Disney arc as promised by talking about the next film, which is The Sword in the Stone. 1963's The Sword in the Stone. This one is new to me. I don't think I ever saw this growing up. The scene in which he actually pulls the sword from the stone was familiar, but I feel like I might have just seen that clip along the way. So this is all new to me. Hugh, what's your history with this one?
I can't remember if I've ever seen this one before or not. Actually, familiar with the memes that came about. Some of Arthur's faces in this are pretty funny. Um, it, you know,
Other sword in the stone memes I'm not familiar
it's
with.
just like reactions. Arthur
Sure.
making that weird face when he's drinking the tea, and Merlin's trying to explain to him what the future is. Like the all of 20th century politics, and he's just kind of like, yeah, like
What a strange choice that was. Now,
yeah.
based,
It's I'm not really sure why that was. That Yeah, that's an odd.
based on the Wikipedia synopsis of the book that this is based on, it seems like the idea that Merlin is traveling backwards through time or something along those lines seems to be part of the original story as well. Obviously, not, as far as I understand, not the Arthurian legends, but this novel written, I believe, in 1938 by
Yeah,
T.H. White. Merlin kind of moves back through time or something along those lines. In this, it seems to be that he is literally just a time traveler, which is very
yeah.
strange. Um, and it and it sort of results in what I think is the worst part of the movie. But before we get there, um, I hope you're all having a fine Sunday. Thank you all for joining us. Like I said, we're going to continue our 2D theatrically released animated Disney film arc. Last one we did was 101 Dalmatians, which was quite a joy to watch. Hugh, I'm going to ask you what you think in a minute, but I'm going to go first. I don't like this movie very much. I'm sorry to say if there are any mega fans of this movie in the chat, but I think this one kind of sucks. I had it in my head that this was going to be a cool story about King, like a young King Arthur doing cool heroic stuff. But it isn't really. It's mostly Merlin talking about how the medieval era was backwards and lame. That's most of what the movie is. I suppose you could also say maybe that most of the movie is sequence after sequence of little Arthur getting turned into an animal, and then like he gets chased by a predator, and then he narrowly escapes, and we pretend that we learned a lesson from that. That seems to be the general structure of the story. I couldn't believe how little story there actually is in this. Um, the sword and the stone is mentioned in the prologue. We're off to a good start. We got a great, opening overture and music and all that sort of stuff. And then we go into the classic storybook in live action. It gets opened. There's a person singing a lovely little song, sort of narrating the basic premise, which is that, after the king died, the country sort of fell into like a civil war, competing factions and all that sort of stuff. And there was a sword stuck in a stone that it was prophesied that if whoever removed the sword from the stone would become the true king of England. But no one was able to. And so everything sort of fell into chaos and the strong preying on the weak and that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, we've set the stage pretty well. I am excited. And then we don't really come back to that until like
the
90% of
end.
the way through the movie.
It's right
I
at the
couldn't
end.
believe it.
It's kind
I
of
could not
strange.
believe it. It's truly, truly bizarre, and I'm not a fan because most of it is Merlin going, ugh, stop learning how to be a knight and stuff. You should read more books. I'm going to turn you into an animal and teach you a lesson about being smart. That's most of the movie. I
Yeah,
couldn't
well,
believe it.
it's yeah, in yeah, there. So okay, I also was a little underwhelmed by this movie. Um, I was expecting something more along the lines of, like Sleeping Beauty, right? Like it's not like they haven't
Yes.
already kind of nailed the medieval fantasy archetype, right? Like they've done that
Yes.
just a couple movies ago. And so for this one, I was a little confused as to the why did we choose to do it this way? Why is Merlin so opposed to Arthur learning skills that might make him a useful king in this time period when
Yes.
instead he could. Now, I think another thing that I found a bit confusing is that the lessons that he seems to intend for Arthur to learn don't really come up. They're not like later on, right? Like when he turns
No.
him into a fish. Um, I suppose. Like, I think the I can't remember what the reasoning given for why he's a fish is, right? Like it's because he's supposed to learn about the physics of how to swim as a fish, but it ends up being that he has to learn how to outsmart and maneuver stronger, bigger and stronger foes, which is yeah, okay, I could see how that. Yeah, okay, maybe I can see where that might come into play later on.
Doesn't really teach him how to do it, to be fair,
No,
though.
he
Um,
does say, "Well, you're on your own, lad," and like leaves him to the fish. There's
which
there's
is
a
a certain kind of teaching, sure, but
yeah, there's a lesson with a rather rapey squirrel, um, that I don't know what what he's meant to glean from that really, and of course it doesn't factor in later to why he's going to be chosen to be the king. So it all just sort of seems like a couple of loose skits before we tie it all together at the end real quick and don't
he doesn't put
explore.
any of his lessons into practice.
Yeah,
He doesn't really do anything to prove his character, to demonstrate why he ought to be the future king and everything. He just pulls the sword out of the stone like it's nothing, and everyone goes, "Oh my gosh, you're the king!" And he goes, "What?" And that's
yeah.
basically
Okay, well, I don't want to be the
basically how
king.
it ends.
Merlin comes back in time from Bermuda and says, "Oh, don't worry, lad. We'll figure this shit out together." And it kind of just ends. Um,
I cannot believe that that's what the story of this movie is.
well,
It's
it makes
baffling.
some form of sense to me that that's where it ends, given that it's an adaptation of the first book in a set of four that forms like one particularly famous novel, right? Um,
Sure.
it feels like it's building to something that we just never see. And that I was trying to dig into this and to see if maybe because so he bought the film rights to it the year after it was published in 1939. Right, so the book comes out in 1938. Disney buys the rights in 39 before the rest have been finished. But by the time this comes out in 1963, the whole series has been completed and revamped and published as The Once and Future King in 1958. Right, so he
Sure.
has the rights to the first one. Maybe it was harder to figure out. I was trying to see if maybe he had been intending to turn it into a 4 movie series, or if this was intended to be the first part of a trilogy and it sort of underperformed, so he just kind of scrapped it, or something. None of that really seems like it was in the cards at all. It just sort of seems like this is what he wanted to do. And of course, it was mired in pre-production and production for, as far as I can see from the Wikipedia notes, like damn near 20 years. It took a good long time for them to finally get this together, and they weren't sure how to make it work. And this was
Well, they
the
didn't figure it
conclusion.
out.
Yeah, that
They
they
did not
arrived
figure
at.
out how to make it work. I could see this working much better essentially as the entire, like, all four of those books in one feature film instead of 4 movies or whatever they might have intended. Hard to say, but there's so little story in this that I can't believe it. I really can't believe it. So I think the most charitable thing you could say that this movie is trying to do is that, Arthur is a young page, he's an orphan and all that sort of stuff. And he just kind of he has to be a squire essentially for his older adopted brother who's kind of a douche, right? And, he has to learn all of those sort of things. But Merlin's like, hey, you're pretty smart. You should have like a proper classical education. I will teach you. I will take you under my wing. And he teaches them valuable lessons about, book smarts and how to outsmart your enemy instead of just using brawn or whatever, that sort of thing. And eventually, it's proven that he really is the once and future king because of Merlin's help.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
trying. I'm
so
trying to be charitable here. That's kind of what they're trying to do. I would argue that the lessons that Merlin teaches him are at best like, yeah, sure, that's fine, but you didn't really teach him that. He just figured it out himself. And at worst, they're just bad life lessons.
yeah. Well, in the book, from what I can tell, on the Wikipedia summary, right? He is transformed into a bunch of different animals throughout, but he learns certain things from them that actually seem like they could be or should be good lessons. Like, for example, he learns from becoming a goose that when he flies very high, he can't really distinguish national borders, so he should treat people equally, right, and fairly. And he learns also that other geese, or maybe some
He's
other
gonna be.
tribes of
He's,
geese
he's
will.
I'm sorry, but I know that that's in the book, but even then, that seems pretty dumb to me for a person who's going to become the
Yeah,
king of
yeah. Well,
England.
so like the second book, he ends up in a war. So like but he learns from a goose that he should treat people fairly, but also that there are other tribes of geese that might come and try to steal their food. So he needs to stand
Okay,
watch and make
sure.
sure that they don't
Okay,
do
that's
this.
better.
Right?
Yeah.
He needs to. Like, he learns from becoming an ant that workers and like practical creatures like that, the practical creature that is the blue collar worker views things in terms of binaries, either the job's done or the job's not done. So it's not, oh, it's getting done. It's either you did it or you didn't, right? Which is kind of a practical, very, down to
Sure.
earth way of viewing your tasks and such. And so then when he goes to pull the sword out of the stone, he tries 3 times, and then all of his, like, the voices of his animal friends encourage him to try a third time, and he manages to get yeah, like, he sees the vision of the heavens and everything. And so like it's like all of nature falls into accordance with him when he persists the third time, right? Like, beyond the
So
trial of the
he,
first two, right? So like
the
the natural
sorry, really
world
quick.
falls in order when he reaches the pinnacle, right?
Sure. Does he, is it just persistence that causes him to pull it out the third time, or does he actually do anything
I
differently?
I don't know. I only, like I said,
Okay.
I only read the Wikipedia summary, and I'm sure that this is missing quite a bit from what the book says. I wasn't able to.
Already, though, that's way more than there is in this.
Yeah, it's a lot more coherent, symbolically and just in general. Like you can parse the lessons out of what he was meant to take away and how those might help him moving forward as a kingly figure. You
Sure.
can see that a lot more.
In
This
this
one,
one, the squirrel, for example, is just like, oh, young love, oh, you'll learn when you're older. Like, that's all that that sequence amounts to, really.
yeah,
Except there's one part where he almost falls and she helps him. But like, what do we learn from that?
she's
Even if we do learn things from some of these lessons, they don't get incorporated in the story later, so they feel like a waste of time.
yeah, like I'm not, because Merlin turns him into a squirrel to help him learn about gravity is what he like what he
Yeah.
says, but then
Yes. No, he does.
it ends up turning into, oh yeah, oh young love, now that girl squirrel's gonna fuck your brains out, kid, you better get ready. It's like, what is it, what does it help to have your king like learn about us, like learn by getting boned by a squirrel?
It's so
Like
thematically confused as
I
well.
don't.
Let's ignore the young love thing with the other squirrel, right? He's like, oh, if you want to be fast, yeah, don't like if you want to learn how to swim or something like that, don't just think like a fish. Learn to be a fish. It's like, okay, sure. And with the squirrel, it's like, oh, you'll learn to jump through the trees and like it's okay. So you would think that that is sort of like, oh, well, if you want to be competent physically, right? Study nature, like understand
Yeah,
nature, understand
like
your
that's
body.
the most
Like,
generous take you could maybe give to that.
oh,
'Cause
sure, sure, but then the movie contradicts that because Merlin is really against like physical education. He's like, no, you need to be reading books. You need to. He's like a book smarts guy, but then he's giving him lessons that involve like embodied things, like learning about gravity by being a squirrel. It's just confused. It doesn't make any sense. And we'll get to it eventually, but Merlin's character, I think it goes quite a bit beyond, hey, you have more capabilities than you are being allowed to express as just kind of like a servant, right? Like you're smart and you could get a classical education. Like that's fine, but Merlin actually seems to be hostile to training to be a knight. He kind of has the energy that like a resentful nerd has towards jocks in
yeah,
like something like Stranger Things.
yeah.
Like that's the attitude that Merlin brings. It's very strange. And I think it's probably my least favorite thing about the movie is just Merlin in general. He sucks in this. First of all, can't tell you how annoying it is to have Merlin constantly talking about how the medieval period is backwards and
Yeah,
that like he's basically like an enlightenment rationalist liberal of the future stuck in the medieval period constantly talking about how oh things will be better in the future because of all these great advancements and unlike stupid backwards medieval times where they think being a knight is important like unironically that's what
yeah.
Merlin is like in this and that's the kind of attitude that he's imbuing in King Arthur.
Yeah, yes. It's the guy who's gonna found the 12 most famous knights, the order of the 12 most famous knights in the mythology of Britain. Yeah, he should disdain the idea that knights are important, and he should just focus on learning about
The
physics.
germ theory of disease and physics and locomotion and steam engines and things that will happen in the future
But that
when
he
things
has
are
no
better.
real power to affect
No, he's
now.
confused the
Like,
whole time.
yeah, it's like, oh, you'll never, like, look, they're gonna make trains that'll bring people from place to place. It's like, oh, like me? No, no, not you. Somebody else. Oh, Okay, well,
When the
what
movie
does this have to do
started and
with?
Merlin like make these weird, almost fourth wall breaking references, like anachronistic references to the future, I'm like, okay, that's a weird little gimmick, but he's sort of a wacky wizard and maybe he has visions of the future. Fine. But he actually has a hostility towards the medieval period itself.
Yeah,
Because it feels like the writer treats the medieval period itself as just like full of backwards idiots who knew nothing about science. Like it's like if Merlin was Isaac Asimov or someone
yes.
like that. Like
Oh,
that's
oh God, that's true. That's very, very true.
it's really I don't like it. I really don't like it all. First of all, like Arthur barely gets to do fucking anything in this movie. Really. He gets to become an animal, get chased by a predator, get himself into like a tense situation, and then narrowly escape. And then Merlin's like, "What'd you learn?" He's like, I guess I learned to be smarter than my enemies." It's like very good. Like that's all he gets to do. There's a big climactic scene, right? Because the conclusion of the movie is him pulling the sword out of the stone, but it's not really a climax of the story in any meaningful way. The real climax of the story is when Merlin has a wizard fight with an evil woman wizard, and
Yes.
Arthur, ostensibly the main character, sits on the sidelines and watches.
Yeah, Merlin is more the main character in this movie. Um,
Yes. I don't
which
think
is
the movie's quite aware of it. You can just tell that the writer is like identifies with Merlin a lot.
yeah.
And so it's so strange because, okay, so this was written, obviously, it's based on the book, and we've talked a little bit about the ways it differs. It's been changed in ways that matter and have made it worse. But it was written by Bill Peet, who has been the writer on all the many good Disney movies that we've talked about so far. So this just, it seems to be
This is
like
a
a total
strange, yeah.
anomaly. Because he wrote the story for, additional story for Sleeping Beauty, wrote the story for 101 Dalmatians, Lady and the Tramp, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, all these movies that are much more thematically coherent, that do a much better job of presenting the past in a way that isn't hostile towards it. So I don't know what happened in this movie exactly.
Um, yeah, so this is kind of interesting. Pete, the who this is from the Wikipedia article, right? He recalled how humiliated the production team was to have to accept defeat and give in to working on the Sword and the Stone.
Well, they didn't want to.
At least there was another team who was working on a Chanticleer, a different movie that they were thinking about producing and approving for production. Um, Evidently, the team really was not. They really did not want to work on this movie, and
Okay, I
yeah,
can feel that.
yeah.
One thing we haven't talked about yet is the animation. It's fine. It's certainly subpar compared to some of the previous movies we talked about. It's everything's just a bit more janky and slightly low effort. It's not terrible, but some of the previous movies we've covered, even the ones that ostensibly have less action and excitement than this one does, they're much more lively. They're much more beautiful to look at. Everything feels just kind of like we put in the minimal amount of effort, which is still pretty good. I mean, it does look better than a lot of modern animated movies, but it does feel like a step down in the technical regards as well. Oh, there's the face. Yeah, you should put that on screen if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm about to, yeah. But yeah, this is you watching the movie basically.
Yes, exactly. He did like Bill Pete. He did a lot of great work on all these previous movies. I don't know what happened on this one exactly, but yeah. So okay, basically, this is not a King Arthur movie in any real meaningful way. It's a Merlin movie, which is kind of funny because um, I was looking it up. I was looking at images on IMDb, and there's like a whole bunch of different, language covers and everything. Uh, the French title of the movie appears to be Merlin the Enchanter, or Merlin the
Yeah.
Wizard.
Well, funnily enough, when I looked it up and got the Google AI overview that didn't tell me that the source material was a T.H. White book, but it told me that it was instead the 13th century poem Merlin. Um, which I was like, oh, that's gonna be a tough one to find at your local bookstore. But yeah, it's about the story of Merlin as a prophesying wizard who constructed Stonehenge and can see the future and is born of a virgin and everything like that. And I was kind of like, oh. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense given that Merlin is very much the main character of the movie, and that it sort of treats the story of Arthur becoming king almost as a side, like a little aside that like a box that we have to tick before the thing ends, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a little surprising to learn that the source was actually something that does revolve very much around Arthur, right?
Yeah.
But
It's a strange choice. It's a bad choice, first of all,
it makes more sense to call it Merlin the Enchanter than really the Sword and the Stone, honestly. Like, cause
Yeah,
yeah,
it certainly does. Because it's mostly about him preaching at Arthur the whole time. And he's the one with the big climactic fight scene. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I think the story of this movie is pretty lame, honestly. It's certainly not what you might. I thought, for sure we'd get like Arthur doing cool knight stuff and learning actual lessons that would prepare him for being a knight and being a king later. You don't really get that from this. I don't really feel like Arthur proves his character, his worthiness to retrieve the stone at all. And it's not really his fault. He's just being led around by Merlin, who's very strange. And like, first of all, some of the lessons that he tells him explicitly are like okay, but a lot of the lessons that he tells him implicitly are actually just really bad. For example, Arthur is punished for misbehaving from his lord's perspective or whatever his title is. And so he's forced to wash a bunch of dishes. And Merlin comes along. He's like, ugh, how backwards of you to wash each individual dish by hand. Let me use magic to wash the dishes like an assembly line because things are better in the future, and that's how they do things in the future. And so he just like takes his chores away from him, so he doesn't have to do them. And it's just like, come on, really? Is that is that the lesson we're teaching here?
who cares as long as the work gets done, as he says. Yeah, interesting.
But he
Um,
doesn't like learn anything. He just does it for him with magic. Because, it's not like Arthur learns what an assembly line is and how it works or anything like that. It's just Merlin showing off that he knows things that scientists will know in the future and that makes him big smart. For example, he is fighting the big bad evil lady in the finale of the movie, and she's cheating because she's bad and evil. But Merlin is like, I'm going to outsmart her. When she's transforming into a dragon and all these other animals, I'm going to transform into a virus
yeah.
and get her sick, give her the chicken pox, or what he gives the Latin name. I couldn't tell you which disease it was. Um, he makes her sick because he's big smart and he knows about germs and she doesn't, and that's how he wins. It's like cool, good for you. You're so impressive and cool and smart. This feels like a proto Reddit movie. You know, that's maybe that's
uh,
being harsh, but that's what it feels like to me.
Merlin he's definitely a Redditor. Yeah,
Yes.
yes. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Real quick, I wanted to respond. So, Wasserman asked, "Is the poem that I'm referring to Le Mort d'Arthur?" And no, that's not the one that the Google AI overview told me, informed me was the source. It was Merlin by Robert de Biron, a partly lost French epic poem. So obviously, of course, that was going to be fucking impossible to find anywhere, right? Le Mort d'Arthur is actually from the 15th century, although yet again, another difficult one for me to find in the places that I was looking for. I'm interested in checking that out because that is the inspiration for T.H. White's novel series, but yeah, overall. difficult kind of thing to piece together. Not I was a little surprised to find how little there seemed to be of like compilations of old Arthurian myths. Like we have tons of compilations of Greek and Roman mythology, tons for all kinds of other. Yeah, we have compilations of Celtic and Native American stuff, but nothing for the Arthurian legends that I could find. Like not one that is like your Barnes and Noble Classics edition or anything like that. So that was kind of interesting to see that. I was a little bit off put by the fact that like I could find more examples of modern porn writing than I could of this rather foundational text to Western civilization.
Someone says it sounds like it would be more interesting if Merlin took Arthur with him on his time traveling adventures like in Bill and Ted. Yeah, that would be
That yeah,
more
that would be
interesting.
that
That's
would
for
be
sure.
yeah.
I mean, it would still be a very strange choice, but that would, it would certainly give Arthur more to do.
Yeah, well,
And you could,
because instead, what we get is him, Merlin, kind of being like, "Hey, by the way, the Earth is round. Like, here's a
and he's like,
globe from
"What?"
the future to prove it." And he's like, huh?"
And like that's the end of that.
Yeah,
He doesn't like
here's a
that
model of a
doesn't change
locomotive.
anything.
This will be
And
important
Arthur
later. Just
and
you wait.
But Arthur doesn't learn anything about how these things work, or he basically, what it reminds me of? Nate Bargatze, the comedian.
Um, no, that's not ringing a bell.
I think you'd recognize him. He can be pretty funny, but he has this bit about like he's talking about how he's not very smart, right? And he's like, if I went back in time, like, and and what like I would like if he time traveled back in time, he'd be like, in the future, people can have these things called cell phones, and they can like call each other across long distances, and they'd be like, oh, how does that work? And he goes, I don't know. Like, essentially, that he could travel back in time, and then it would make no difference at all because he doesn't actually understand how anything today really works.
Yeah,
When Merlin is like, "Oh, look at this little locomotive. This is an airplane. People are going to invent flight in the future. Oh, this is how germs work. Did you know that the world is actually round instead of flat?" Every time Arthur's just like, "Whoa, that's neat, I guess." He doesn't integrate any knowledge about how those things work. He's going to forget them. If
yeah,
if Merlin disappeared and 5 years from now, he was trying to remember how that locomotive worked, he wouldn't know. He's not taught anything about the principle of any of these things. He just goes, "Oh, the world's round, huh? That's weird." Okay. I guess it just feels like Merlin's showing off all the things he knows.
yeah,
That's just really what it feels like.
yeah. Pretty much. Hey, by the way, there's this force called gravity. Oh, what's gravity? Well, he doesn't really have a great explanation. He kind of says like it's one thing, it's something that pulls you and a larger object together.
And
Now
then
I'm going to
that
turn you into a
transitions into
squirrel so you
love.
can learn about it. Like,
But then he runs into the other squirrel and they're drawn together, you see. It's a
yes,
metaphor
there's a
for love
theme.
or
Yeah,
something.
like yeah, something. Yeah, there's a theme about his love life, his future mythologized love life of being a cuck, and like even in the so. I went and looked up some of the summaries of the next few books in the T.H. White series, and apparently in one of them he ends up impregnating his own half sister because Merlin forgot to tell him that this woman
Whoops.
was his half sister, which
Whoopsie.
to be fair, that's in line with the Merlin from this movie. I think that makes sense. Um,
Merlin's supposed to be a rather chaotic and, strange outsider figure, like a Rafiki sort of type. Like so I can excuse a little bit of like quirk and eccentricity and strangeness, but the whole movie just feels like him trying to show off how smart he is to people that have no concept of what he's talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Monopolize me says like in the bit he's like, I don't even know how I would prove that I'm from the future. It's a good bit. Anyway, yeah, I don't get what the point of like any of this movie is, if I'm being honest with you. I the more I watch it, the more I think about it. I'm like, this might be the worst one so far. I'm
I
basically
mean,
ready to call it the worst one so far. That might sound harsh.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I enjoyed this one a little more than the majority of Fantasia, not more than the Mickey Mouse,
Oh, of
the
course not.
Sorcerer's Apprentice,
If
but
that's all, if that's all Fantasia was, it would be like up there at the top.
yeah. Yes. I don't know. Oh, haha, Kyler. There was Quest for Camelot. Yes, that movie. That is a. I don't know. Have you ever seen that one, Jamie?
No, I don't think so.
That one is a. Let me get the date right, because my girlfriend showed that to me for the
98.
first time. Yeah, that is a '98. Like, I think it's done by Warner Brothers. Yeah, it's a Warner Brothers animated movie thing where it was like, oh, the Warner Brothers animation is now trying to like compete with Disney now that the Disney Renaissance is in full swing, and they're kind of just doing gangbusters every time they drop a new one at the box office. Um, if I'm remembering right, the music. Oh no, that's. Oh no, yeah, no. This is the one where the music is this by the guy who like he had a really bad flu or something right before he went and did this. So his voice is completely shot throughout most of the songs. Oh, that was Spirit.
No.
Oh, okay. No, that was the Spirit. That was the horse movie. That was Brian Adams did that. But no, like the songs in this one are really not great, but they got like Pierce Brosnan at the, pinnacle of James Bond. They got Gary Oldman. They got Carrie Elways, who, as we all know, is just an unbelievable talent when it comes to voice acting. Um, this was also like right around the same time as Space Jam, which yeah, so they were really trying to push for the competition. It did not do very well at all. It was a $40 million movie that ended up making 38 at the box office. Um,
Yeah, that's less than ideal.
yeah.
I think we could say.
Who's president in 2025? Donald Trump, the actor. That's funny.
Yeah, it is kind of odd how few like animated, Arthurian tales there have been. Like how few great movies about those characters, those figures, that time period there have been in popular culture, really. Like this is the only time Disney's ever really tried it, and it was this. It was
Yeah.
Merlin going, actually, the medieval period is so backwards, things are going to be better in the
Yeah,
future
they do kind of
because
try to
science.
soften it when he comes back from Bermuda, and he's just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is like because he comes back from Bermuda dressed like Master Roshi from Dragon Ball Z, and
Yes.
he does a bit about like, "Oh, it's a shit show, modern living, ugh, disgusting. Like I can't stand it. People are so
You can have it, I
you
think
can
he
have it,
says.
yeah." So it's
But,
like,
like, that's something to
yeah,
soften it a little bit. He has concluded that the '60s is not better or not great, but he seems to be in love with, like, the Enlightenment and the Renaissance,
yeah,
essentially, and he thinks the medieval period is backwards and stupid. I can't believe that's what they did for this King Arthur story. I hate that. I think
yeah.
that's
It's a
terrible,
it's a
terrible, terrible choice.
it's not a great choice. No, I agree.
No. Anyway, so that's Merlin, right? So Arthur is like fine in this. Like I said, he's just trying to do his best in all the wacky situations that Merlin throws him into, and then eventually he just kind of stumbles into the sword. He doesn't really need to prove it. Like he's kind of a nothing character, really. I suppose he's like fine in terms of his personality. Like he's just like a normal kid,
Yeah, he's
rather
he's just like
unremarkable.
he's just trying to do whatever the adult in the room tells him is the right thing to do
Yes.
at the time. So,
I
he
would
doesn't.
expect a little more of King Arthur. You know what I mean? I want a little bit more of what makes him exceptional and what makes him worthy and all that sort of stuff. He is just kind of like every kid, which is
Yeah.
fine. Especially if you want to start him off there. I think that's fine. But he's just kind of, yeah, he's being led around by everyone around him. It's like,
Yeah.
Pinocchio actually has to like become a real boy by like doing a self-sacrifice and all that sort of stuff. In this, there's nothing. He's at one point he forgets
The
his
main
knights.
reason, well, and that happens in the book also, but the main reason why he even is in the circumstance to become the future king of England is because he bungled it and forgot his knight's, like, he's a squire who forgot to bring his knight's sword to the tournament,
The big
and he
jousting
can't, yeah, the
competition. Yeah.
big jousting competition, and he can't get back into the inn where he left it. So he just has to go to he just goes out to the courtyard, and he's like, "Oh, there's one," and he just pulls it out of the anvil and walks back with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Like it's nothing.
yeah,
It's like,
huh."
okay, but like really anticlimactic. That scene lasts like maybe 2 minutes. He'll go back because they'll be like, they'll put it back in the zone and, they'll struggle to bring it out again. And then he just pulls it out. And it's nice, the heavens opening up and the music and the light coming down from heaven. That's all cool. But it's like, did he earn it? No, not in any meaningful way at all, really. So that's kind of lame.
The only reason that he's a squire again, right? Because like he gets fired as a squire for Merlin. Okay, Merlin casts a spell to wash the dishes to save, save him some time so that he can go LARP as a squirrel.
Yes. But
They
really
come
quick before you
back.
continue, someone said, "What if Merlin was Adam Conover and nothing happened?" That's a pretty
I
accurate
mean,
description of the
kind
movie.
of, yeah.
Anyway,
I like so he casts a spell to make the dishes wash themselves, which we've learned from other Disney movies that that's not not a great idea. If you like from Mickey in the first play in the Fantasia
yeah,
act, but he does this. They go LARP as a squirrel. They come back, and the washerwoman is like all freaked the fuck out because the dishes are washing themselves, right? And so then is the king, or no, not the king, the guy, the steward of the castle that he's working in, the father of the knight, and he kind of he has like a finger wagging moment. He yells at Merlin for practicing dark magic. Merlin gives him the gaze down his down his nose about you think that washing dishes is black magic, and then he disappears. And because he's pissed off the steward of the castle, Arthur gets demoted. And the only reason that he is allowed to be a squire again, the only reason that he's allowed to come back to being a squire is because Hobbs, the other squire who replaces him, comes down with a bad case of the mumps. So
yeah.
it's not like he doesn't really do anything to, earn back the trust of but he doesn't do anything to break the trust, really. Like, except maybe taking the easy way out of scrubbing the dishes, which isn't even his idea in the first place. And then
Yeah.
he doesn't really he doesn't do much to earn being demoted for having done that, except that he says doesn't he say something about like, hey, leave
Leave Merlin alone.
yeah.
He's good and smart. Trayvon
Yeah.
Washington, he makes a good point. He says, I mean, kings by definition don't earn it. They obtained it by, well, I mean, usually by heredity, right?
Yes.
But that isn't even like a factor in this story either.
Yeah. But well, yeah, I mean the whole thing is right, the idea that what I think we mean by when we say earn it is like in the story, in the terms of the story, like to see why he would be a good king and why he is the right choice. That's what we want to see a little bit more of from these misadventures that
That's
he
the
goes
way
on,
it's
right?
structured.
Yeah.
That's the way it's structured and then doesn't happen. The way it's structured is, oh, he is taught lessons by Merlin that will like, prove useful to him being a good king, and then, oh, it turns out he is the one who can actually retrieve it from the stone. And it's like, wow, look at that. Instead, he's taught these lessons, and they're pretty piss poor or mediocre at best. And then he just stumbles into the sword and goes, "Oh, I guess I'm the new king." And it's like, it's been a really long time since I've read anything about the original King Arthur story, but isn't he like of royal blood in exile, or like doesn't know it? And
He's
then it's
yeah,
like
in
it's the
this
return of the
specific
king
version,
archetype.
he is the son of the king who died.
Yeah, how come that doesn't factor into the story? Why isn't it about like, oh, you're like the sort of male Cinderella sort of thing where like you are a noble person and that you've been in this like poor impoverished circumstance, but you've kind of demonstrated your good character and you're restored to your proper place. Like that kind of story. Why isn't that essentially what happens here? Instead, it's in this movie, I don't think it's ever mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, that he is actually supposed to be the son of the king who died.
I don't remember it being mentioned.
I don't remember that ever being mentioned. It is just like a random orphan boy is chosen by God. And so you would think if they're going to do that, that's a pretty big change that I wouldn't really be all that in favor of. But if you're going to do that, you would want him to earn it,
Yeah, or like, and
right? Certainly.
you would want to show why he is the correct choice, right? Like even if it is something, it's like, oh, he is the one, imbued genetically, you could say, with the nobility of a king, right? The nobility and
Sure.
the
Yeah.
kind-heartedness of a good king. There's
Hmm.
yeah, it's
He's got good genes like Sydney
yeah.
Sweeney.
Yeah, Quantum Ranger Power was saying like maybe something about how he takes the sword not for his own use but for the service of others. Something about how he works to serve others instead of himself. Yeah, I mean, like that's maybe
Thing.
there. Like like you said, it is a bit of a stretch. It is
Yeah.
there, but the way that it's presented in the movie, it's just kind of like he's in desperate circumstances and he's like, oh well, yeah, no, I'll just do this, I'll just grab this one's just sitting around not being used. Haha. Like he doesn't realize what's going on. Like the light from heaven shines down on him when he touches it, and he kind of is just like, huh, well, what the fuck is this? I don't got time for this, I gotta get this sword to my guy. And he leaves, right? And it's an odd choice for the way that it ends up going.
It's a terrible choice, I would say. Because he's not, he's not actually secretly nobility and just didn't know it or anything of the sort. He doesn't earn it really by virtue of his character. It doesn't really get the opportunity to put the lessons that Merlin is teaching him into action. It just sort of happens at the end because they remembered that that's the title of the movie.
Yeah.
That's how it feels. But like, Arthur as a character, I get, he's fine. Really, I think the story does him dirty. I think the way he's characterized and written is fine. He's just like a normal kid, not hateable the way Merlin is hateable, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, what's the reason? The reason why Merlin abandons Arthur in the first place is because Arthur is showing up in his squire's clothes because he's been rehired for the tournament, and Merlin's like, "Wow, why would you do that? Why would you be doing that when you could be getting an education? And you could be reading books
Yeah.
and learning about Enlightenment philosophy and parliamentary procedure." And so he's just it's just kind of like, well, because I got a job to do, and Merlin gets pissy and goes to Bermuda instead. It's like there's nothing wrong. Like that's his big moment is when he stands up to Merlin and says like, hey, it's actually a noble thing to be a squire. I'm proud of it, and I don't much appreciate you acting like
Wish he said that. He is just a kid, but I do wish he got to say that. Like that, I was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop the whole movie. The other shoe being like something in the story to sort of repudiate what Merlin is saying. So maybe Merlin has to learn, because that's what it could have been, right? Merlin is obsessed with book smarts and whatever else, and he's
yeah.
not really interested in the embodied sort of physical, noble, the ethics and kind of culture of chivalry and knighthood and all that sort of stuff. He's not really interested in that, and he has to kind of learn that those things are valuable too. I mean, I wouldn't have gone that direction, but that's something they could
I
have
mean,
done.
if you were gonna do this Redditor version of Merlin, like why wouldn't you, right? Like that
Yeah,
makes a lot of
exactly.
sense to like you could have an odd couple sort of relationship between the two of them, right?
Yes.
Like give him one other mentor, like, make Ector, the other mentor, a little bit more of a force in his life. And so he
Yes.
has to, balance that relationship, and those two have to get along to help him become the king he was meant to be.
Yeah,
It
he
makes
has
a lot
to
of
get
sense to
both
me.
sides of it,
Yeah.
right? You know, if one is the sort of like just the basic labor of like having to do the dishes and carry swords around for another guy and do chores and all that sort of stuff, but he's also training to be, squire and everything that involves physical activity and all that sort of stuff is important. And then also because Merlin either knows or intuits that he's actually the son of the king, he needs to learn, some of these. He has to have more higher aspirations for his education, and the balance of those two things,
Yeah.
like the union of those, the synthesis of those sides come together in the end, and that's what makes him the perfect king.
Yeah.
Something like that.
There's also an aspect of fate that's active in the book, in a lot of the source material that involves Merlin, right? Because he can prophesy the future, and
Sure.
he has this idea of, or in T.H. White's version, I guess, if he's living backwards in time, right? And he kind of knows where things are going to go, and he has to prepare him at this stage to become what he will be, right? There's an aspect of
I would like if they
yeah,
could have explored that,
yeah,
right?
well,
Because,
they do like a very surface level like idea, because he says he's waiting for somebody at the beginning and he doesn't know who, but he gets the chair positioned in the right spot, and he knows that whoever comes through that door is going, or comes through the roof and lands in the chair, is going to be important, and that he's going to have to help him become, somebody important. And it's like, okay, yeah, I don't mind that. I think that that's
that's a
interesting.
decent start. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't really carry on with it afterward,
If anything, we do things that kind of you would think if this was the theme we were exploring, you know, this actually kind of does harm to that theme. At the very, very end, Arthur is like, I don't know that I'm not ready to be king. I don't know that I'm king, and he tries to escape, and then Merlin shows up from coming back from Bermuda, and he's like, oh man, he rants about how the future sucks, or like that the 20th century kind of sucks. It's overrated anyway. But then he's like, "Oh, you're going to be a great king. You're going to be great, and they're going to write songs about you. They're even going to make movies about you." He's like, "What's a movie?" He's like, "It's kind of like television. Like, it's just kind of it's just used for a dumb joke." I feel like there ought to be, if we're exploring this theme, something of a better balance between, because Merlin ought to have to like be really careful about what he tells Arthur about the future, right? Because to take an extreme version, something like Macbeth, like he learns about the future and it kind of destroys him, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and there are a lot of old, mythological and tragic stories about learning something about the future and then trying to avoid it. It's the Oedipal story. Um, you think that would be important. You would think that he shouldn't just tell him, "Oh, you're going to be a great king and they're going to write songs about you." Like that's a weird thing to tell a kid. I don't think he's ready to hear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he
Does that
does
make
he
sense? 'Cause
already
I'm
doesn't
thinking
no, it makes a lot of sense. He's not like, cuz he the reason that he's not prepared to be a king, is because your lessons didn't do a very good job of instructing him.
sure.
Like,
Absolutely.
all this time he's been wasting pretending to be a squirrel and a fish and everything. It's like, what does that help him? How does that help him to rule a country in, whatever century this is?
Yeah.
How does knowing
Yeah.
that locomotives are going to be invented, and that steam engine, the world, and that the world is round, and that, like, that physics are going to be important? How does any of that help him to
It doesn't.
become a king? It
It
doesn't.
doesn't
So
at
of course
all.
he doesn't feel prepared.
Yeah. I don't know, I think about, like, in The Matrix, one of my favorite things about The Matrix is when, everyone's talking about, the chosen one who's going to come along and save humanity, right? And, like, that's, all these sort of questions about what the chosen one is. And then he goes to see the Oracle, and the Oracle's like, "No, you're not the chosen one." He is, but he's not the chosen one because that's she tells him he's not the chosen one because that's what he needs to hear, because if she told him that he is, he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something really interesting there because she tells him like, "No, you're not the one, but you don't really believe in fate and all that sort of stuff anyway. You make because he's the one in the Matrix because he doesn't believe that everything's fated. He's not sitting around waiting for the savior to come. He's going to be the one to do it, right? And, like, that sort of thing is a really you have to be really careful with how you think about like prophecies and things that are fated in this sort of story. Like, I don't think you should just tell this kid, "Oh, you're going to be a great king," and like everyone's going to sing songs. I don't know. It just feels like we're not. If we're going to do something with Merlin, like going backwards through time and having knowledge of the future, I would like to actually explore that theme. And it could still be for kids, right? But
Well, I think the
you could
original
do a
book
better
is for
job than
kids,
this.
right? Like the,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the original Arthurian legends, like those were also for kids.
yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't need to baby them. Like, I don't know. This also feels like the kind of movie that is any young boy really gonna love this? Like if a young kid is like interested in, the legends of King Arthur and knights and all that sort of stuff, is he gonna like this movie? Probably not. We don't get to do any of that stuff. We just pretend to be animals for a little bit.
Yeah. And we have a weird fight.
Remember
We
how
have a fight with
Mufasa
some
wanted to
shapeshifters. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
remember how Mufasa wanted to avoid gassing up Simba's ego? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that movie is very much a sort of like,
That is a bit of
a
an
medieval.
Arthurian. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is a much better version. The depiction of, like like,
Well, of the
kings
orphan
and
king,
passing
right?
on
The
the
return of the
dynasty and all that
king.
sort of stuff.
It is the return
Exactly.
of the king.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Simba and Aragorn very similar, especially in the
Yes.
way that they're depicted in the movies. As like the book Aragorn's a little different, but like the movie Aragorn has that whole I don't want power.
These tax reforms remind me of the time I got turned into a fish. That's pretty good. Quantum Ranger power. It's pretty good. Yeah, okay. So, like,
These
what
feudal
else do we
lords are
have?
really up my ass. Good thing I learned about this that one time I was a squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Muggy makes a good point that young boys would rather watch Sleeping Beauty than this. Exactly. Because, like, Sleeping Beauty, at least on the surface, you think, oh, it's a princess movie. Maybe a young boy would like this more. No. No, because Philip is way more of a heroic badass. And Arthur just kind of goes like, I'm a squirrel now. I'm a fish. Oh, I'm a bird. Look at me. Like, that's really it. There's not really
yeah,
much to aspire to in this movie.
yeah. He kind of just bumbles around, and everything else happens around him until the movie needs to end. It's a little bit of a letdown. I gotta say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was very disappointed by this movie. Like, a lot of those sequences that fill up the vast middle of this movie are just the same thing over and over again. It's like, okay, now he's a fish, and we get a few moments of him just experiencing the awe and wonder of, oh my gosh, now I'm a fish. Look at me, I'm swimming around. Uh-oh, a predator. Oh no, how am I going to get out of the situation? And then he gets out of the situation. And then now you're a squirrel. Oh, you get to experience some of the awe and wonder of being a squirrel. Oh no, now there's this obsessive girl squirrel following me around, and oh no, I fell, and she has to save me, and oh, I got out of that situation. Oh, and now I'm a bird. Oh, isn't it fun to be a bird? Look, I'm flying around. Isn't flying cool? Oh my gosh, a hawk. I gotta avoid being killed by this hawk. Oh my gosh, I avoided it.
yeah.
Oh,
I
but now I'm
avoided it,
with
but
this
now I'm in
witch.
in a witch's hovel. Yeah, and now now I have to figure out, and like there's something in the I guess in the black magic of Mim and the righteous magic of Merlin. I guess because she does have there is almost a level of temptation that she offers where she's like, "Oh yeah, look at all the things that I can do with magic. I can, be huge and small and ugly and beautiful, and I can grant all of like anything I wish I can have, and I can grant that power to you, or I could destroy you because like, I can just live on a whim like that, right?" And then Merlin has to come in with his more ordered, structured version
I
of,
wish.
yeah, like kind of Merlin. Like it
But
doesn't,
Merlin is like that too, just not
yeah,
as extreme. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like if Merlin was chaotic, but like more of a Yoda figure in terms of how he uses magic for good and not to make things easier. Yeah, because basically he uses magic to like save him from having to do his chores to make
yeah,
it easier because I guess modern conveniences are better than being stuck in the medieval period. Like that's not noble or aspirational in any sort of way. Like how is that really much different than the witch who can make herself beautiful? Like I don't really see a huge
yeah.
difference there.
I mean, like it's like they almost hit on the idea
Almost. Yeah.
almost that the good magic outweighs the evil magic, and they have to show. But Arthur's never really presented as being tempted by the evil
No.
magic, right? Like because it's not like he's studying relentlessly and he just can't break through, right?
You want to read that one too?
I have decided to give permanent visas to 500 million Pakistanis because of the 5 minutes I spent as a bird. Thank you, Merlin.
He became a bird and then he realized that borders are fake and gay, and so no.
That actually does sound sort of like what the what the version of the geese story, the bird story in the book is.
I'm sure it's better than the book
I'm sure it
because
is.
it has to be.
Because
But but
1938, they weren't thinking quite that silly.
no, no, it's really funny. Yeah, yeah, I think you're right that they almost hit on a theme in terms of the evil witch. She presents black magic and all the ways magic can be perverted to one's own like sort of selfish whims and desires and all that sort of fun stuff. But Merlin, despite his kind of kookiness, is actually presenting a much nobler vision of how to use magic. Um, Never really comes up for Arthur though,
No.
because he's never presented the opportunity to learn magic, which I mean, obviously that's Arthur isn't in the original stories, but they changed everything else. So
Yeah, well, and it's not as if, he's hitting a plateau or something and he doesn't know how to get over it. It's not, there's no escalation of challenge for his lessons or for what like he's not struggling with
no,
time management really because Merlin's okay with using magic to make the routine base tasks easier, right? So there's nothing really to tempt him into the black magic path. So he just kind of like it's almost a superficial offering, like, oh yeah, we kind of understand that this is how a good story would do it, but we haven't really set that up, so we're gonna just like blaze right past it and then do a weird shape-shifting wizard duel for the next 10-15 minutes.
he wins by knowing about diseases because he's been to the future. And he's
Yeah,
like, haha, I got you. You can't see me, but I gave you chickenpox.
suck it.
Okay, sure. Why not? And then once that battle's finally done, it's like, oh right, the sword and the stone. Let's get back to that. It's like, unbelievable. I cannot believe it. So okay, those are the main characters. Like we get a tiny bit of Sir, what's his name? Sir Ector, I
Yeah,
believe
Sir
is.
Ector and Kay, his son.
Yeah, Sir Kay, and they're just presented as sort of like the the
the
dumb
rust the
medieval
rube
people.
the rustic rubes who
Yeah.
they'd rather just fire in the the squalor of the dark ages than you'd come into the enlightenment renaissance era. you know
Yeah.
just meathead
They're
jocks.
hicks.
They're meathead jocks.
They're hick meathead jocks, yes. So there's nothing really interesting to say about them, unfortunately. They're pretty paper thin.
Well, and like,
And that's
what's the resolution? So their conflict really is that they don't think very much of Wart or Arthur, right? They call him Wart, not Arthur,
yeah.
and he doesn't become Arthur until later on, right? But they don't think very much of him. Um, and then he pulls the sword out of the stone by accident, and then he does it again on purpose, and they apologize because they realize that they've been giving shit to God's favorite son, and that's pretty much it. That's the arc for them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like and like if they were a bit more like the stepmother and her daughters in Cinderella, where they were mean to they were cruel to him because he was a servant, you know, and a squire and a page and all that sort of stuff. They didn't treat him well like they should. And then they when they realize, oh my gosh, he's actually of noble birth. Oh my gosh, don't we feel dumb? Um, like that would be one thing. They're not especially rude to him, really, though.
Now they just
It
they just
not
kind of think of him as like sort of incompetent.
and but because he kind of is.
Yeah.
They're they're not really all
He
that
did
especially
forget the
rude to
sword.
him. He forgot the sword. He, you know, caused him to mess up and shoot the arrow deep into the woods in the very beginning, which is like a perfectly fine, like, little boy mistake to make, you know? I thought, like, the movie starts off all right, honestly. Like, the first few beats, I'm like, "Okay," and then he's gonna travel through the woods and, you know, it's working at first. But he is just kind of like a normal kid, and mostly it's like Merlin's bad influence that causes him to have any real conflict with Hector and Kay.
Yeah.
Really, because he has his duties and things he ought to be doing. They're not really especially cruel. They're just like, "Ah, you should do these things." But Merlin's like, "No, he has to learn how to be a fish."
He has to learn how to be fish and about Isaac Newton's laws of gravity.
That I don't really understand, but I saw explained when I was in the future, so I'm going to poorly explain them to him, and he's not gonna really comprehend it. But it's fine. That's more important than, ugh, learning how to train to be a knight. All that dumb jock stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, that conflict isn't really very meaningful, I would say, at all.
No.
You know, and, like, the conflict in Sleeping Beauty where, like, they don't tell her that she's actually the princess because 'cause they're trying to protect her, and but then, like, they can't protect her forever. Like, that's those are all much more meaningful conflicts with those kind of characters. Hector and Kay are just sort of there, and Kay is just a jock douchebag in the way he's presented on the surface, but he's not really all that terrible, you know? It's
Not so terrible that he doesn't humble himself by the end, like pretty
exactly.
quickly, you know? I mean, he apologizes immediately. Like that's the other
Yeah.
thing is they're like, "Forgive us, please. We didn't know. We had no idea you were deigned to be the king."
Yeah. Well, no one did, so
Yeah.
that seems fair, honestly.
We would have
Well, the other
totally
thing, like,
treated you differently if we had known that you would one day hold the power to execute us on a whim. Please.
you know, you could also go something along the lines of they knew, but they just didn't want it to be him, so they didn't
Yeah.
tell him.
You could
Like, that
yeah,
would
you could do
be
something like that. That could be interesting, right? Or like,
yeah. Even
he
if they
didn't
weren't like,
believe.
you could have them be cruel, and they're like, "Oh boy, do we feel silly for treating the lowest person, you know, the least among us terribly," because you never know who they could be or how that
Yeah.
could affect you in the future. But if you also wanted it to be that they're not, like, even especially cruel to him, but they're just like they don't tell him that he's the king because they want it to be Kay or they want it to be someone else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would be interesting. That's an interesting angle.
It would
Instead,
add a
it's
lot to their character for sure.
like, for example, when they come in, they see magic being used to wash the dishes, and they're like, "What is all this?" Because they're not used to magic, right?
Yeah.
The story is like, "Huh, aren't they stupid?" And then it kind of like, in a comedic, you know, children's movie sort of way, punishes them by like getting them like stuck in the big basin full of water, and the dishes are smacking into them. It's like, haha, isn't it funny? It kind of like humiliates them, and like I don't feel like that's fair based on what happened. Okay. Yeah, it's just I don't get it, man. I don't get there's something off. There's something that does not pass the smell test about the general ethos of this movie.
Yeah, it just kind of feels thrown together, and like for a movie that took almost 20 years to make, you would expect that it wouldn't, you know. You would expect that they might have been
Yeah.
able to congeal it into a more thematically solid
Yeah, I'm
foundation.
totally fine with them changing things, and, there's a
Yeah,
lot you
I don't have
can
any
we've
particular.
we've seen plenty of examples of these Disney movies that change their source material fairly significantly, but make it really, really kind of deeply meaningful and thematically coherent, and then this is just, you know, it's the Merlin show, and he's an annoying Redditor, and then it just sort of ends. I don't I don't really see the appeal. It is, like, not as well reviewed as many of the other classics we've talked about so far. I was happy to see that I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
I think someone mentioned earlier in the chat, I don't remember who now, forgive me, but they were talking about, like, "Oh, this is one of the ones I remember least." Like, I couldn't tell you anything that happened in it. It's like, yeah, it's because it's not very good. It's not your poor memory or anything like that. It's you don't remember it because there's not a lot to remember, frankly.
So
It
Jean
didn't stick with you.
Arneal of Variety wrote that the film demonstrates anew the magic of the Disney animators and imagination in character creation, but one might wish for a script which stayed more with the basic storyline rather than taking so many twists and turns which have so little bearing on the tale about King Arthur as a lad. And you know
Yeah,
what, Gene, I
I'd
agree
I'd
with you
put
on
it
that.
I agree, I would put it even more harshly than that, but I agree. That
Yeah,
is the central problem in a nutshell.
yeah,
So, in terms of the technical stuff, right? I think I mentioned it before. Hugh, you can tell me if you agree. The animation is like fine, but it is kind of subpar compared to some of the best work that's ever
yeah.
been done in the medium that came before it.
It's not particularly astounding compared to even the more recent ones that we just the last couple that we did, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah, like
have the
101
same.
Dalmatians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or even Sleeping Beauty, like it doesn't have the same appeal of like a medieval tapestry. It doesn't look the
yeah.
same. It just kind of feels a little bit half baked in most
A little
places.
flat, a little cheaper, a little
Yeah,
rougher around the edges. The way like I wasn't especially impressed with like how well the mouth movements sync up to the dialogue. It was just kind of there are a few moments where I'm like, oh, that didn't look great. Little basic things like that are like, not terrible. Maybe they won't take you out of it. Maybe they will, but not a lot to write home about, except for the scene when he pulls the sword out of the stone and the heavens open up and the music choir sort of swells. It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's the little gem, that's the little shining diamond in the rough that like I want this movie to be, you know?
yeah. That's
Like
the
there's
part
just a
that
little
feels
glimpse
the
there.
most like it belongs in a medieval story, right? I just
Yeah.
for the rest of it, it just doesn't feel great. I mean, and there were critics from the time who said, excuse me, that it felt older than the contemporary other Disney films. So like I think that kind of sums it up. Like it does feel like it's a step back from some of the others that they have just completed. So um yeah, I don't know, man. I just there's something missing from it. Yeah, Orochi Kitsune is saying I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie because I owned it, and while I love other takes on Arthur more, the movie did still kind of plant the seeds for me to want to read those stories. Yeah, I mean, like I can see that if somebody saw this as a kid and watched it a bunch, right? Like this would be inspiring to sort of like visit the actual stories. I just think that like if you go back and watch it now, it just falls flat compared to especially like some of the others that they do with the similar themes, right? We'd mentioned Sleeping Beauty already. That has more to sink your teeth into than this one does. It's just a little bit too, especially for me, it's just a little too much like we're doing it's almost a little bit too much like Fantasia. We're doing a few too many sequences that don't like and then sequences. Somebody else put it that way in the chat, and I agree with that. You know, too many and then sequences that don't lead to a well-rounded conclusion. You know, it's a lot of just anecdotal things, all pretty much anecdotal moments that don't congeal into a whole by the end.
We talked about the music yet?
We haven't. Somebody earlier mentioned something about the songs being bangers. I don't know if I'm 100% there. I think my favorite one was when Merlin gets started on the dishes and the jazziness kind of comes out, because you know this is we're starting to get into peak jazzy Disney era. You know, especially after
Yes.
101 Dalmatians, they're really getting in there with that. Um, the rest of them, I don't know. They just kind of felt a little bit forgettable. I don't know how you felt about it.
I was not really wowed by any of the music in it. I did think the opening kind of overture and the singing over the like the storybook opening, that was nice. It sounded really good, and that was preparing me for a movie I didn't get. Eventually, as the movie goes on, I found the jazziness inappropriate for this, but that's because I think it's because I wanted a different movie.
Yeah,
I wanted a more medieval, Arthurian story, and so the jazz doesn't really work for me in this context.
I
Like
mean
the
that's
way the
fair. Yeah,
jazz works in 101 Dalmatians, and the way the jazz will work, obviously, in like Aristocats and things like that, and even the Jungle Book. I'm okay with having a little bit of sort of breadth of style, for the movie. Like if the movie was better in the story department and it still had a little bit of jazzy influence on the music, I'd be like, you know what, that's fine.
yeah. Well, I
Like
mean, like,
I'm
if
I'm
okay,
cool
so
with
if we
that.
were gonna go with Merlin, is from the future, right? He's kind of a time
Yeah, yeah,
traveler,
exactly.
and like his
Exactly.
songs were more jazzy, but there were others that were more, medieval, and he kind of brings that little bit of excitement and life, like something that's a little more modern and fun,
Because he's kooky
because
and
he's
he's
kooky and
strange and he's
strange, and he
fun.
like
Yeah.
he prefers living in the 20th century, sort of. Like that would be an interesting choice, and if he's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, but they don't really stick with the theme there either. Like some of his stuff is just kind of making up nonsense words and ending it with something digitonium, and there you go. Like he's
Yeah.
done his duty. I don't know. It's just, yeah,
Ephraim Winslow says smooth jazz basically only works for film noir or parodies thereof. Well, this isn't smooth jazz. This is rough jazz,
yeah.
which is the best jazz.
And I don't know if I would call Sing 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 smooth jazz.
No, it's rough jazz.
Yeah.
Those are the only two options. There's smooth jazz and rough jazz.
Yeah, I think smooth
Yep.
jazz, I think like the slower Miles Davis music, the stuff that's meant
Yeah,
to,
well, it's more
seduce
like
the ladies, that kind of thing.
what's the name of the white guy with like long curly hair who plays the saxophone? That's what I think of when
Kenny
I think of
G.
smooth jazz. Kenny G, that's what I think of. It's a mild annoyance to me, right? Like you'll find smooth jazz radio stations, but like I want like real jazz radio stations. Why don't we have those? Like I don't have one of those around me. I don't know if you do, but there's a smooth jazz radio station, but it's all kind of like stuff you might expect to hear in the airport. It's not,
Ah,
and
yeah,
that can
like,
be fine. That can be
yeah.
fine sometimes, but like where's the real stuff? Where's the
Kenny
Miles Davis? Where's
Loggins.
the Duke Ellington? Where's the,
Where's the
where's all
John
that sort of stuff?
Coltrane?
Yeah,
Where's
come
where's
on.
Dave Brubeck?
Herbie Hancock. Where are all these people? Instead it's just that sort of weird, kind of overly produced, all the edges have been sanded off jazz. Anyway, yeah, there's a little bit of jazziness in the score that I think like you said could work in a better story, sort of representing the sort of kookiness and vibrancy that Merlin would bring to the story and the out of time nature of his.
Yeah.
That
And
would be something.
yeah, it's something to it would be all of it just feels to me like pretty much every aspect of the story is only kind of halfway there, you know?
Yeah.
If
Some of the
that.
score is fine. I think this kind of has the problem, I think, generally, the score itself is a little bit like Peter Pan in that it's like omnipresent and doesn't really give you a chance to breathe, or very little plays out without it. And I think that can be kind of exhausting and annoying in a way. It's just music constantly. So it has a little bit of that problem, though. Obviously, Peter Pan has a much, much better story than this. So I kind of stopped paying attention to the music and other technical aesthetic elements at a certain point because I'm like, this story sucks. I don't care. Like, is the animation in the shape shifting wizard animal fight kind of cool? Yeah, I suppose, but I was pretty tuned out by that point.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just I don't know. It that didn't really hit for me all that well. And I was
No.
just kind of like, hey, like we're really this is what we're gonna do for the climax of this movie is the two magic characters have a little shape shifting battle. I mean, yeah.
And what does Arthur do? He sits on a branch as a bird and goes,
Look out,
"Get
Merlin!
him! Look out!
Hit her with the
Fuck that
right,
bitch up!"
Merlin. She's dropping her guard.
Merlin, go for the body. Yeah.
Have her dick and twist it. Yeah, it's just
This is the first one I've seen that okay, because honestly, I think I'm about ready to get to the rankings. I don't know really how much there is to say about this
yeah.
movie, but I think the most interesting part will be to talk about how it compares to some of these other ones. Because my two least favorite movies in this entire arc thus far have been the 1940 Fantasia and Bambi, right? And the big reason is that they don't stack up as well with the other movies is that they're very lacking in the story department. But this is actually the first one I've seen that I disliked the story. Bambi is very light on story. There's not a lot that really happens. It's kind of like a, coming of age little vignette compilation. But this, I actively kind of dislike the story. So I'm inclined to rank it lower. I really, partially, this isn't a terrible movie. I wouldn't call it terrible, but it's not good. And most of the movies on this list are incredibly good. So by comparison, like I might be willing to say this is the worst one.
Well, I've got a new graphic prepared for
Oh my gosh, how exciting!
for our rankings. This will make things just a little easier, I think, for me, so that I don't have to type and change the letters and everything like that. There we go. So I got your list up here right now. First and foremost. So you think you want to put this one below Fantasia? Is that your
So
yeah?
let me explain my reasoning, right? So Fantasia is not a story, it's a series of vignettes. And I don't really care for that. I'm a story guy. I'm here for the story, obviously the animation and the music and all that sort of stuff. That's all great, but what I'm here for is the story, and these are some of the best stories in animated history, this whole, Disney arc. So by comparison, Fantasia is the lowest for me. The other thing I don't like about Fantasia is that a lot of the sequences are kind of lame and boring and don't really offer much in terms of any sort of narrative interest, right? Like, and the other big problem I think is not talked about enough is that the musical performances of these classical pieces are pretty subpar, with the exception of the
Mm,
one for The Sorcerer's Apprentice and The Night on Bald Mountain. That's what it's called, right?
yeah.
Except like for example, there's a performance with all the fawns and the Pegasus or whatever else it is, that of Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, the Pastoral Symphony. I'm a fan of that symphony. I like it a lot. I think it's good. But the performance that they use in Fantasia is way too slow. It's way too low energy. And I feel like that is true of a lot of the music in Fantasia. It's like these are not the best possible performances of these classical pieces either. So there's just so much to be disappointed by in that regard. The animation, I think, is beautiful and really technically impressive in Fantasia in general. And obviously, the highlight is The Sorcerer's Apprentice. That absolutely clears anything that happens in The Sword and the Stone. That alone, that little sequence, that
Yes.
has a higher high, right? But also has, I think, lower lows. I don't know. It's hard to say. But Merlin. I was just going to call it Merlin.
Merlin.
The Sword in the
Merlin the
Stone, on the other,
Enchanter.
Merlin the Enchanter, on the other hand, I think the story actively sucks. It not only refuses to do obvious things that would make the story more captivating, compelling, and narratively satisfying, but it has a weirdly hostile attitude toward the medieval period itself and squanders its opportunity to tell a sort of cool Arthurian story about a young man becoming a king and a knight and all that sort of fun stuff. I just think the story is gay and retarded. So I'm going to put The Sword in the Stone at the very, very bottom of this
All
list.
right. Well, there we go. There you have it.
Centaurs. That's
Slides into number 13 beneath Fantasia. Yeah. I mean, that, if I'll go up to mine here, I'm inclined to agree with you, honestly. Again, Ephraim Winslow in the chat there. Ephraim Winslow saying multiple times, as he has, that the Night on Bald Mountain sequence is a
It is really
legitimate
cool.
classic. It is
It is.
fantastic. I love The Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Mickey Mouse
That's the
Sorcerer's
best part.
Apprentice. That's my favorite
That's got a
part.
great little story. It's got more story in that than this whole movie has.
And more of a theme about like magic
Yes.
and how it can affect, the outcome. Yeah, it's.
If anything, sorry to interrupt you, but if anything, The Sword in the Stone is telling the opposite message in a bad way about the use of magic.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know, man. I can't say that I would rather rewatch this than Fantasia. Even if most of Fantasia I'm not a fan of, and I like this. I didn't.
You could just put it on in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I would
didn't
never put this on in the
actively.
background.
I did actively kind of wonder what the point of this was. Like, at least Fantasia, I'm like, yeah, I see what you're going for. I don't think you're pulling it off wonderfully, but this one just, this one was just, yeah. I think I'm with you on this one. It's a bottom tier. It's a 13.
It is.
And I think it's just going to keep sliding down the more so the other nice thing about my new graphic here is that we've got the ones, several that we plan to cover and a few that maybe even we haven't planned on covering, but that might show up eventually if we continue the arc. Right. And I look at some of these and I go,
wait, some of these are not 2D animated though.
I know. Yeah. Some of them are not 2D.
Get them out of here.
No,
we're only doing 2D.
No,
I'm not watching Dinosaur. Fuck you. I'm not doing it.
JB, who knows? Who knows? They listen to Merlin,
I've seen it before, but listen, we have a theme here. All right. I don't want to, because if we open it up to everything else, then we've got to move straight on to the Pixar movies.
Well, no, because this isn't quite because the Tangled and Frozen and Wreck-It Ralph and everything are produced by a different studio technically. So they are the replacement of Disney's animated features. So that's why I included these, and we don't have to get to them. Okay, I'm just putting them in there just in case.
Get them out of there.
I'm not getting them out of there. I'm keeping them right where they are for right now.
I'm sick of looking at them.
Well, just ignore them then. Just look at a different part of the screen.
Close your eyes, damn.
But I look at some of these. I look at some of these and I go yeah, there's no possible way that this outperforms even the Emperor's New Groove, right? I can't even.
No,
see it.
I like the Emperor's New Groove way more than this.
Yeah,
way more. I'm looking at. I mean, some of these I haven't seen before. I've not seen the Black Cauldron or the Fox and the Hound. If I have seen the Rescuers, it's been a very long time. It's that dark gray block that I feel like I didn't see a lot.
Yeah, that's the dark ages.
The dark era.
The dark.
So yeah. So maybe
somebody in the chat here just asked, does Sinbad, the animated Sinbad movie, count? That's DreamWorks. No, this is a Disney project. This is not about DreamWorks.
Yes. Really quick, I need to get on my soapbox about Disney, right? Because I had a long drive back to Maryland to visit my family, and so I was listening to a lot of EFAP, and I was listening to one where they're talking about Predator Badlands, and they're talking about Predator Badlands, in the context of they Disneyified the Predator. They turned the Predator into Disney slop. And I just heard that and I was just like, man, it really fucking sucks that Disney now has just completely ruined Walt Disney's name and legacy, such that Disney is now synonymous with garbage. Like, that is terrible
Yeah.
because Walt Disney is one of the most important figures in modern American culture, and he's made and been responsible for some of the best animated films, some of the best films ever made. And now his name, because the company obviously bears his name, is synonymous with slop. Like, that's just so terrible, man.
Th-
It's such an insult
there was a
to,
time
yeah,
when I was
gotta hate it.
excited that Disney had purchased Star Wars.
Yeah.
There was a time where I was like, hey, there's no
Yeah.
way that they could do worse than what Lucas did with those prequels. And boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. And now, like, now I hear Star Wars and I go, oh, it's a Disney one. That's like legitimately atrocious.
It's they should be ashamed of themselves, is I guess what I'm saying. Because that's a terrible thing to do. I think you inherited something and you just drove it into the mud, and I think it's an insult to the man himself. Um, and I feel bad for him because Walt Disney is a legend, and they've ruined his name. And that fucking sucks.
Yeah, it
Uh,
it's especially you look at the list here, right? And like Dumbo, Fantasia, Bambi, like those that's on my like, lower end here at the moment because we haven't gotten to some of the worst ones, like later on. Um,
yeah,
but you look at those and you go, yeah, that Disney used to be synonymous with quality, right? Like
yeah,
you used to be like, oh, it's a Disney movie. This is gonna be great, or at least it's gonna be passable.
yeah. I mean, like, okay, so we're looking at what we've watched so far, right? And there's 13 of them. I would happily call 10 of them absolute bangers.
Yeah,
I mean, some more than others, right? Like the Sleeping Beauties and Lady and the Tramp, Peter Pan, like Pinocchio, Snow White. Those are like
absolute.
S tier
Yeah,
movies. And I think Dumbo and Song of the South and Alice in Wonderland are all really good. They're bangers, And then Bambi is good. It's just I don't vibe with it as much because there's not as strong of a narrative through line. But it's a beautiful movie and it's got a lot of great stuff in it.
yeah,
Honestly,
yeah. And at least Fantasia
honestly,
is creative, right? Like,
oh yeah, yeah. I don't fuck with it, but there's good stuff in there. This is the first one that I think just isn't a good movie. Really, like the vast majority of the movies on this list are going to be incredibly good,
yeah,
and like that was his legacy. And now it's like, oh, Disney bought another franchise he used to like, and they turned it into sanitized or like really preachy woke slop. Like that's just what they do now. They put a chick in it and make it lame. Like that's that
and
sucks, man.
maybe
That's
that'll
that's
force them to.
terrible.
Maybe if they put a chick in it and make her gay, they'll reconsider whether or not to keep Song of the South around.
Bring it back.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Bring it back.
Somebody,
I won't
the blank face asks why we think the racist movie is good. So bad of us, yeah,
because it
because
is.
it is, and it's hardly racist.
No,
I
no.
would say at
It's
I
funny.
wouldn't even say it's like
I was talking to
insensitive.
my mom about it because I told her that we were going through all these movies, and I mentioned Song of the South, and like I remember as a kid, she would sing like Zippity Doo Dah and stuff like that because it's obviously an incredibly catchy song. So she had seen it, and I was asking her about it, and I was like, "Can you believe that Disney is so ashamed of it that it's not even on Disney Plus?" And then she tried to go like, "Well, it does have a sort of like." She didn't say problematic. I forget what word she used, but problematic, vision of what slavery was like. It's like, no, this was during Reconstruction. It wasn't even slavery. And she was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I could like see her in her head going like, oh yeah, I guess then what is the criticism? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Wait, why don't people like it?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good movie. I like it. It's lower on the list because it is not nearly as charming for lack of animation. Only maybe like a third of it is animated.
Yeah,
So that's basically why it's lower on the list. But it's got a nice little story. It's got some good characters, and the Brer Rabbit sequences are awesome
yeah.
and cool and
It's
fun.
got some really it's got some really great just like the folklore elements in the stories in the
Yeah,
animated
man,
parts are
it's hip.
absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, we'll probably the next one is that since we've covered Song of the South and since I absolutely demand that this be included, we're going to be covering Mary Poppins next on the Disney Project stuff, and we'll probably do a nice back to back so that we actually cover an animated, like a fully animated one. But Mary Poppins, uh, that's gonna. I have a feeling that's
Excited
gonna
for
hit.
Mary Poppins.
Hmm?
Yeah, I'm excited for Mary Poppins. I haven't seen it in a while, but I've always liked it. Julie Andrews is the goat.
Yeah. Dick Van
So,
Dyke does perhaps the most accurate British accent in history, from what I remember.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I'm excited for that movie.
Yeah. I'm really
So
excited to
that
get through the Jungle Book and Robin Hood and everything too, because I
yeah.
love the Louis Prima jazz
Oh
scores.
yeah, dude.
I
That's what I'm
cannot
talking
wait.
about.
Incomparable.
Louis Prima's incredible. What a great voice. He's just so many great songs. Obviously, Pennies from Heaven is not in the Jungle Book, but that's another
That's a
absolute
yeah.
banger.
That's a
Um,
fantastic movie. So Blankface wants to know what will happen when we enter the era of Disney mixing 2D and 3D. Will you still cover the movies? I don't know which ones you mean by mixing 2 and 3D. Um, Everything south of Tangled on this list is maybe Winnie the Pooh because Winnie the Pooh is a 2D one. Every Tangled and then everything south of Wreck It Ralph is like we probably won't cover it just because I don't find it all as interesting.
yeah,
Um,
no, I'm really part of why we're doing this is not just to watch a bunch of great animated, movies, but like I'm really interested in 2D and because I would like to see more of it and I would like it brought back because it just has such a charm and, appeal to it that I just feel like, the oversaturation of 3D animated movies has kind of sapped us of, and I'd like, so I like to highlight them. I like to,
yeah,
even the Sword in the Stone, which obviously neither of us cared for all that much. It has some really cool animated stuff in it, and it's got a style, and it's got some charm to it. Really quick, we got a super chat, kind of referencing that from Sir Marhouse. Thank you very much for the super chat. He says, "I'm behind. Totally get not liking the story, but this is one of my favorites for the art and vibes, and that's all. Arthuriana made me a medievalist." Yeah, I can definitely get the general vibe and aesthetics of the medieval period that are on display in this movie being cool and attractive. I wish the story backed that up, you know,
yeah,
in terms of the actual substance of what happens in it. But yeah, no, like there's a lot to appreciate here. Yeah, I don't think it's quite as strong in the animation department as some of these absolute bangers we've talked about before, but it's still pretty good, and I like 2D animation quite a bit. So that's why I'd rather focus on the 2D animated ones
yeah. Now I
personally.
might because of story. I might insist on something like Tangled. Yeah, just because I see people talking about Mary Poppins is not animated, so this is all cope. Yeah, look, I understand that we're kind of playing fast and loose
Okay,
here. I
listen,
might
the only
insist on a
reason we're
Tangled one because Tangled is a Disney princess movie, and I like that movie. I think I've watched it recently, and I think it's kind of a return to form thematically and story wise, whether or not
okay.
you know.
That okay, so yes, it is all cope. The only reason Mary Poppins and the later like Who Framed Roger Rabbit are on this list is because we watched Song of the South. We
Yes.
didn't know going into it the Song of the South was half live action and half animated.
I wouldn't even
We
say half. I would say like three
it's
quarters
less.
live
It's
action.
less. I I just assumed it was all animated because I knew nothing about it except that it had quite the reputation, and I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. So because we watched that, we are also including Mary Poppins and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Though I will say that those obviously feature 2D animation to the degree that they feature animation, and so it's not total cope, but
Yeah, not entirely, but yeah,
not
I
entirely.
do. And so to the person to Blankface asking if we're going to cover Treasure Planet, I think absolutely. Yeah, Treasure Planet and Brother Bear are going to be necessary to cover for this one because those are kind of the two that killed the 2D animation
They are
part of
2D
the
animated,
studio.
aren't they?
They're a mix of 2D and
Okay.
3D. They kind
So
of,
that's the
yeah,
example,
that's the
right?
example, right? So like those are the ones that kind of killed it. Because after that, you see like Home on the Range. That nobody knows that. That's a 3D, a 3D animated one. Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt are all like an attempt of Disney to sort of cannibalize Pixar and do it in their own, like basically to release two every year instead of just the one, right? And I do want to cover Treasure Planet and Brother Bear because those are the two that sort of convinced them that doing 2D animated, even in the way that they did, was not profitable anymore to do. And so I
Yeah.
want to talk about whether or not we agree with that assessment, which I'm going to say is probably a no. But yeah, I want to talk about those two, and then also the Princess and the Frog and the remade Winnie the Pooh, because that's another 2D animated one. That's probably we might. I mean, somebody mentioned that ending on Frozen, given how much Frozen dominates the company and what they make nowadays, that might be a good place to stop. I might agree with you on that, just because of how much chasing the success, the viral success of Frozen they've done since it came out. Like that's kind of the whole
Yeah.
philosophy behind their filmmaking process when it
Well,
comes to this.
and their approach to storytelling.
Oh, is Home on the Range 2D? I thought it was. I thought it was like a weird 3D thing with a cow. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Home on the Range. Oh, it's
Oh,
2D.
it is 2D. Look at that. I thought. Oh, that's.
I
I
never
was
saw
thinking
that
of.
one.
I was thinking of something else. I guess there's one. Yeah, I was thinking of the one 3D. Oh, it might probably like a TV show with a cow, a 3D animated like Jimmy Neutron era TV show with a cow in a barn. Um, okay, so
We're
Home on the
getting
Range is full
we're
on
getting
2D.
requests to end before Frozen. I'm inclined to agree with that. I I will if I have to, but I don't want to watch Frozen.
Oh,
I
Barnyard.
can't.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's Kevo. That's what I was thinking of is Barnyard. You are correct. So yeah, Home on the Range. We probably will
Barnyard.
cover that. Barnyard. Yeah, Barnyard is the. Hold on. Let me. Yep, that's the one I was thinking of. Back in the Barnyard. Or yeah, Back at the Barnyard. Nickelodeon show. Yep, that's it. Oof.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but I recognize like the character design of the cow. It's something.
Yes. That. Yeah. That's what I was
It
thinking
sure
of.
is something. You'll have to cover Wish. Oh, right. Is Wish I
That's a
can't remember. It
3D,
was
isn't it? But
oh,
isn't that the one where they try to recontextualize like is it
yeah,
he the
it is
magic mirror or
3D.
some shit? Yeah.
I've heard terrible things about what happens in Wish to try to like put them all in a weird connected universe in a way that totally sucks. That's all I know about it. But
Oh, oh,
maybe that would
lordy.
yeah, I know.
That's yeah, that
This movie arc has a depressing ending, guys. Yeah, well, that's life.
yeah. Well,
That's what is happening in our culture. So, we got to face it.
more
Got to face it head
thematically on
on.
point with the Arthurian legend too, right? than Sword in the Stone ended up being. I mean, that
You know
has a
what I'm
terrible ending
excited
anyway.
for? Well, I'm excited for a lot of these, but those purple movies,
Yes. That
that's gonna
Disney
be
Renaissance era is going to slap. That
I'm excited for it. So Mary Poppins is the next one. You said we're gonna do Mary Poppins and Jungle Book? Is that
I
what you
think
said?
that yeah, because I doubt we're gonna have as much. We want to talk more about the animated stuff, but I figure we can just give Mary Poppins a bit of a like an early discussion, and then move on to Jungle Book and close out the Silver Age. Give the people a double to make up for the fact that we've taken our sweet time getting to the Sword in the Stone.
You know what? That's fair. You can stream next Sunday, right? You don't have any conflicts.
No, I do have a conflict for next Sunday.
You do.
I do. I do.
Boo. Everyone boo Hugh in the chat. Boo
Yeah.
him.
Yes. Boo this man. Yes. Yes.
So that means the next one can't be till the 14th.
Oof. Yep. Pretty much.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Well, that's a shame. Well, I know what we're doing on the 14th. I'll tell you that it will be reacting to a video. Ooh,
Ooh.
exciting! We haven't done that in a while. We'll be responding to a video. Can you believe it? That's what we're going to be doing on the 14th. So you don't need to prep anything for that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but I think it'll be an interesting discussion. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe we'll get some very special guests. Who knows? Who's to say? But
Oh,
we can't
wouldn't that
stream
be fun?
Sunday, so blame Hugh for that. It's all
Yes.
his fault. He's a big gay baby, so he can't be there.
Pretty much.
Isn't
Yeah.
that a shame? Blank Face, thank you very much for the super chat. Says not Disney, but you should also give Memoir of a Snail a watch. Yes, you have recommended it many times, and it is something that I have put on the list to give a watch. I have seen another movie by that same guy. What is that movie? What am I thinking of here? Memoir of a Snail. Memoir of a Snail. What's the other movie by this guy? Mary and Max. That's the one. I saw that back in the day in 2009 when it came out, and I remember thinking it was neat, but I don't remember anything about it at all. So
I haven't even heard of that. Oh wow!
so
Hey,
yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman and Toni Collette. Damn right.
So yeah, Memoir of a Snail. We'll get around to that at some point. We will do other things other than Disney. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, boo Hugh. Yes, boo him. Let him know. Let him know how heartbroken and disappointed
Yeah,
that you're
You
shitting
know,
and pissing
Georgius,
and crying.
I have always been interested in reading The Once and Future King ever since I saw it on the table in the final scene of X-Men 2000. So, you know what? Or maybe it's X-Men 2. I don't know. I think Magneto's reading it while he's locked up in his plastic prison. But either way, looks good. I'll probably see if I can
It's a great
find myself
title.
a copy. It is a really good title, yeah. And you know, like really speaks to the fate aspect of it, which I think sounds pretty cool. So I will read that, and you know, maybe I can even get it done by the time we react to the video. Who knows?
Who knows? Who's to say? Before we go, Hugh, you watched? Was it just the first episode, or all the ones that came out
Oh
of
no,
the new
I
Stranger
watched the
Things?
first of the newest Stranger Things. Yeah, I watched the first episode of the newest Stranger Things and the first 20 minutes of the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein. So if you would like, we can
Wait,
talk a little bit about both of those.
well, you only watched the first 20 minutes?
I only watched the first 20 minutes because we decided to turn on, like I could sense the rest of the room getting bored, so I decided to turn on Stranger Things instead, and complain about that rather than complain about
Well,
Frankenstein.
since you've only seen the first 20 minutes of Frankenstein, we won't talk about that. But I have not seen it yet. I made a joke about at Stranger Things expense on Twitter, but I have not seen any of the new season yet. What did you think of the first episode? Was it worth the wait?
Oh, buddy. No, not even a little bit. I was so shocked that that this was the direction that they went for I I was kind of shocked that this was the direction that they went for. Having said that they were finally going to do a time jump, you might have expected that they would try to. So, okay, you remember the ending of season 4, correct?
I remember that it ends on a cliffhanger where it seems like hell itself has opened up and it is spilling into, what's even the name of the town?
Hawkins.
Hawkins. Yeah, so it ends on a like, oh shit, things are gonna get real hairy now kind of ending. I remember that.
Yeah, the hell itself has cracked open. Max, yeah, Max is in the hospital because she's been fucking killed by Vecna's magic.
Hmm.
And they watch as the fissure to hell has cracked open, and that's it. Kind of cuts to black, and that's the end. They said, "Oh yeah, no, guys, don't worry. We understand. The kids look too old. now. Like we're gonna definitely do a time jump. You know, we have to. We
Yes.
can't get around it. So you might
But
expect that the
I
time jump.
remember hearing I remember sorry, I remember hearing that they were going to do a time jump, and the obvious, reason that the actors are all way too old now, that makes a certain amount of sense, obviously. But when I heard that they were going to do a time jump, I'm like, but they ended on a cliffhanger. They can't
Yeah.
they can't. Like it really matters what happened in the aftermath
Well, I think
of that.
what we had said was really the only way that it makes sense that you could do a time jump for this is if you kind of like fudge the opening of 28 days later, where Max wakes
Yes,
up from her
yes.
coma and like has to
Everything's different.
reorient herself with the way
Yes.
the world is since the ending, right? Almost like do the Dollhouse season 2, where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
jump
yeah.
and you as the viewer are reorienting yourself with a character who is as unfamiliar, right? Cuz like that would be the only way that I could see that working if you were going to have to
Sure.
do it. Um, well, for anyone who has not seen it yet, the time jump that you might have expected would be a couple of years to allow the characters to age up to the actors is 18 months. It's been about a
That's it.
year, and since the giant portal to hell cracked open, um, nothing has happened. The town's been quarantined, but they just put some corrugated metal sheets over top of the fissure, and kids now use it to sled. They all
Cool.
breathed in
Sounds
some
good.
spores that launched out of the ground, but that's it. That's all that's happened.
That's so lame and dumb. Yeah, Stranger Things. Right, so here's the short version of Stranger Things because there's been some chatter about it in the chat. The first season of Stranger Things is good. I would not call it amazing or great, but it is good. The pilot of Stranger Things is great, but there
Yes.
is kind of like a drop off from the pilot to the very end of season one. But it ends well enough, and you're like, that was kind of neat. I like it. It should have ended there. It did not end there. Season two is worse than
Yes.
that. Season three is the one everyone seems to agree is the worst so far. Um, I didn't even watch season three because everyone said it was bad, and I was like, yeah, I don't really care anymore, especially after season two. Who cares? If it's even worse, then no fucking way. And
Season
then
3
season
is
four,
maybe one of the lamest examples of a body snatcher plot I think I've ever seen, right? Because
yeah,
the monster, the mind flayer monster escapes from the upside down, right? And starts brainwashing and like taking over the minds of like more than half the townspeople. And so you might expect that that would result in some body snatcher type scenarios, you know? It's using them in this utopian message of like bringing everybody together, but they are removing their personalities. But instead, what they decide to do with it is at the climax of the story, they all are marched into a basement where the big evil force, psychic force, is like living, and they're liquefied into muck, and they form into like a viscera golem that's going to chase the kids through town.
that's lame.
But why would
It's
you do that? I
it's so
don't.
lame.
Another thing that this most recent season. So one of the other things the most recent season added. So some Georgius said they could always de-age the actors. Well, the opening sequence of this season is a de-aged version, a really poorly de-aged, like I'm talking Irishman bad de-aged version of Will trapped in the upside down from season 1 to sort of recontextualize that moment that he got by the monster and like put into an alien slug farm, right? Because if you remember, the plot of the second season was about how he vomited up a bunch of slugs that became little
Bugs,
monsters
well,
in
demi-dogs or whatever.
demodogs. Yeah, that they became demodogs in the town, and they almost opened up a portal, but they performed a sort of exorcism on him to get the mind flayer out of him, and it worked, except now they're saying that it didn't. Now
This is
it
all
like it's just been a dormant thing that he could have had happen to him any time in the other two seasons. And this is one of the reasons why the other two seasons are kind of lame, is because most of the characters don't have much to do. Like, outside of Eleven and maybe Dustin every now and then, like, most of the characters are kind of just spinning the tires. That Will doesn't have anything to like, you can't contribute to fighting giant flesh goop monsters as a fucking 13-year-old. Like, he doesn't have any powers anymore. You got rid of that element of him being able to, like, see into the enemy's, mind. You got rid of that Harry Potter, element to him by exercising it. So he hasn't had shit to do for 2 seasons. But now he could have been doing it the whole time, I guess, or like it's just back. They never actually got rid of it. It could have happened anytime.
Hugh, you know what your problem is?
What's my problem?
You remember what happened.
I remember what happened in the other seasons.
That's your problem.
That's the problem. That's true.
It perhaps more than any other show I've ever encountered, Stranger Things punishes you for remembering what happened before. Every season in isolation is best enjoyed in isolation without having seen or without remembering anything that came before it or came after it. Because if you do remember anything that happened previously, it's just going to ruin it. Because you'd be like, wait a minute, that wasn't the case before. Even the good things about season 4, which we didn't mention, but season 4 was the one where everyone's like, it's been a return to form. It's good again. It wasn't really. It just had really some good stuff in it.
And most of the good stuff stupid. Relies on retcons from like that you have to just basically imagine didn't happen in season 1. Like, oh wait,
it involves retcons. It involves like, okay, so like they made Max. Is that Sadie Sink's character's name?
Yes.
They did some cool stuff with Max in season 4, but it is a retcon of what happened in season 3 because they just decided, oh wait, we're gonna make her different now. It's like every season punishes you if you remember what came before it, but perhaps more than any other show I've ever seen. It's really quite remarkable. So it's actually kind of funny that I think actually the multi-year gap between seasons might actually help them in terms of how good people think it is. Because they probably aren't going to go rewatch all of it. So they'll miss or forget, unless they're you, because you, for some reason, remember all this stuff. I don't know why. You're just special in that way.
Well,
you're the chosen one.
I'm retarded, so
they're gonna not remember all the things that contradict what they try to do in the new season because they don't care. They've never really cared. They're kind of always flying by the seat of their pants. That's even evident in the
second screen
viewing
degree. At its peak.
Yes.
Like this show exists to be put on in the background while you fuck around on your phone and scroll Instagram for a while. Like if you pay any kind of attention to it, you're gonna start to get angry. Like why does this make like yeah.
I think Stranger Things really is the defining show of the streaming era in a way. In terms of a lot of the problems with it, I think it's really the example par excellence of like, the fact that it takes a million years between seasons, the fact that they're chasing like movie level production value. And so they're spending an inordinate amount of money on it and it's taking forever to do, even though no one really cares about that stuff. Everyone is fine with TV being cheaper looking than movies. Everyone is fine with it. But they're like, no, it's got to look like a movie. So they do all this. I mean, they're trying to. That doesn't mean they always do look like movies in terms of the CGI quality. But they're spending that kind of money on every new season of this stupid show. They're even going to try to release the final episodes in theaters. That's going to go terribly, by the way. So Netflix, famously anti-theater. They don't like theaters at all. They think they're dead, but a lot of the filmmakers they work with really want to put their stuff in theaters. So sometimes if they really want to qualify for an award, they'll put it in the minimum amount of theaters to qualify for the Oscars, but really they hate theaters and they want to see them die. But Stranger Things, they must have convinced them like, oh, let's put the finale in theaters. And so Stranger Things said, So Netflix said, sure. But if the reputation and reaction to the first couple episodes of this season are any indication, the critical consensus of season 5 is going to be in the absolute gutter by the time they actually put this out in theaters.
Oh, am I not the only one who's like very
I've
very
well, you know what?
unimpressed with this.
I I've seen a lot of people clowning on it. On maybe it's just my algorithm and the kind of people I follow, but
Okay.
I've seen a lot of people clowning on it. Um, so maybe I feel like it's going to go terribly. I
Oh,
feel like
I can't imagine that. I haven't watched the next episode, right? But like, there's so much, even just in what they've established. Because like, even though they decided to do the time jump, they've kind of like set up new rules for how everything works again.
of
They didn't
course
do
because they
much with
change it every
yeah.
time. They
They didn't
change it
do
every
much with
time.
anything, but they're quarantined. Like, somebody mentioned that Robin is one of the most useless characters.
Is
That they've
Robin Maya Hawk?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Robin is kind of running she's running a radio station for Hawkins. Yeah, that like I guess like she's running a radio station that is like approved by the military that is quarantining the town, right? And she is well aware that they are monitoring her communications because the first couple minutes of this is her sort of giving this everybody comply with the law, make sure you're wearing your masks and getting your vaccines and all this kind of shit, right? She's giving that speech, and they shut like the broadcast gets shut down, right? And they freak out because they're like, oh, they must have really not liked you being sarcastic like that. And she was like, I was just encouraging compliance and having a cheerful tone. There's no way they would get upset about this, you know. But the gang has been using that radio station to run like secret raids into the Upside Down that are illegal from the military's perspective, but they don't encrypt the channel or anything. They just keep in active communication while they're doing it, chatting about all the illegal. Oh, Hopper, where is Hopper? Hopper is on the truck. He has snuck onto the military truck. He's heading in. All right, I'm in now. I am hiding in the back of this military truck. They're on an unencrypted radio channel, and they know they're monitoring that radio channel. So it's it makes like even within the context of its own little set of rules for
New,
this season,
yeah.
it makes no fucking sense. It's
Yeah, it's been pretty stupid for a while. I think a lot of people thought season 4 was a return to form because there were some likable new characters and a couple fun sequences, right?
yeah.
Eddie, is that his name? The metalhead guy. He was
Yes.
fun. Joseph Quinn played him really well, and like him playing Master of Puppets on the top of a trailer, like it's fun,
Yeah.
right? There's some fun stuff, but someone Topaz did mention that he's heard a lot of the actors are completely checked out by this point. I have a little fun anecdote to share about that. I worked with someone who was in the camera department on this final season, who said that Winona Ryder was a huge diva and a pain to work with. I'm like, oh, that's a shame because I like Winona Ryder. And then he's like, yeah, she just didn't want to be there and was putting in very minimal effort and just wouldn't show up. She's like, no, I'm not doing that. She just didn't want to cooperate at all. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, that's frustrating, but can you blame her for being
Yeah.
checked out of this
She's like,
show? Really?
I
Like she
can't.
was the main character of season 1, really. Like she had the biggest story. Like she had so much to do in season 1 and she did such a great job, and then like now she's like going on weird missions to Russia and doing nothing. Like it's like I don't blame her for being checked out. The other fun little story is it's relatively common knowledge that her and Millie Bobby Brown don't get along because Winona Ryder would like try to talk to her about movies and stuff like that, and Millie Bobby Brown just doesn't watch movies. Doesn't
That
like
doesn't surprise me even a little bit, honestly.
exactly. So Winona Ryder would be like, "Oh, you should check out this movie," and she's like, "Oh, how long is it?" And Winona Ryder's like, "Oh, you're just not even. Do you even like movies? Like, what are you doing here?" That's the rumor anyway. It seems to be widely attested. And I did hear from someone who worked on it that Winona Ryder would go on and on in this, like while filming this final season, about how much she loved Jenna Ortega would just like constantly be talking. Oh, Jenna's. Oh, she's so great. She's just so passionate, and she just loves talking about movies and stuff like that. And would just rant constantly about
That's
how
so
much more
funny.
she liked working with Jenna Ortega, and that's pretty funny and catty in a way that I find amusing.
Yeah, so somebody also real quick, because I can't really remember this very, like, this is one of the points where my memory fails me because it all sort of blends together. But I seem to remember that at the end of season 4, Dustin kind of gets up at a memorial service for people who have died and gives a big impassioned speech about Eddie, the one who played Master of Puppets and then died in the Upside Down. I like I know everybody had kind of thought he was a serial killer, right? Because like he's on the lam in season 4. That's
Yes,
part of the thing. I thought that was resolved by the end of the season. Do you remember? Because like he gets up and gives a very impassioned eulogy for him, and kind of I thought
season
clears his
5.
name. And no, at the end of season 4, I thought he kind of
I
clears his
I'm
name.
I'm fuzzy on all these details. I don't. I
And
just remember the broad strokes.
and the reason that I ask is because it's a very significant plot point that like everybody in town or a bunch of the jocks in town are bullying Dustin and like jumping him and beating him half to death because he's still wearing a Hellfire Club t-shirt and like still respects Eddie's memory. And like that's like, I thought that they had resolved that, but it like, you know, if they hadn't, and he is still aware that like the whole town is operating under the belief that Eddie killed a bunch of people, like none of his friends have talked to him about, hey man, maybe like stop antagonizing everybody about this. You know, like it's bound, like they think he murdered people, like it's bound to get you in trouble. Yeah, this is another thing, Kevo. Like they're still pretending that nobody else is aware that there are monsters and like demons that are coming out of the other
Even though a
dimension.
rift formed in the middle of town and
Yeah,
everything that's happened in the story
that
thus
everybody's just kind
far.
of like, oh, that's weird, la di da di da, and going about their day. Like,
What's funny about that is that like, like I can excuse that if that's the only real problem, you know? Like, this is probably the single biggest problem with like the Buffy Angel universe is that most normal people aren't aware of all these supernatural things. It's
yeah,
just like, yeah, there's no way. You just kind of have to accept that they've kept it a secret. They do a little bit of trying to explain it, but you just kind of have to accept that that's somehow never gotten out. And if that were the only problem, you could forgive it, I think. Uh, if they were still doing the thing that like, oh, they all think they're crazy, talking about the Upside Down and Demogorgon and whatever else. But like when you add that on top of all the other things that the writers don't really care about having make sense, it's like, what is there?
yeah. What do you have? You have like something that's still trying to be the Goonies in
Yeah.
E.T. You know, like
Yeah, it can't. First of all, the charm of it being about the younger kids, that's gone. They're too old now, and a lot of them aren't especially good actors. But like also the wave, as someone mentioned in chat already, the wave of like 80s nostalgia has crested. It's gone. Like we're not in that moment anymore. So like, the outfits and playing songs and having certain posters in the background, that's just not really doing it for a lot of people anymore.
yeah,
Stranger Things is such a
it's the
it's
same
just so
song too. They
fascinating.
play the same, like, of course, because you know Max is in the coma, right? Like when they visit her in the hospital, they play the same song again, which they overplayed the shit out of in the in that last season. It's
Yeah, yeah. It's a good song. They play it a little one too many times, but there was some good stuff in season 4, mostly with Max, and that sequence is pretty good.
yeah, that's like the one part that
So they play that song again in
yeah, they
this
play that song
season
again,
5.
and I'm sure it's gonna keep coming back because she's not
Uh,
awake yet. She's only in, you know, one scene. Um, yeah, it
Sadie Sadie Sink is the best thing to come out of Stranger Things. I feel pretty confident saying that.
Yeah, that and
She's
like the
really good.
revival of Winona Ryder's career, maybe.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, sure. Yeah, I like Winona Ryder in season one, but like in terms of any of these actors, like them going on to do other things, Sadie Sink is the only one I like actually care about because she's good. And also, there are funny interview clips of her promoting season 5 of Stranger Things where it's kind of obvious she is not precious about this show. She's kind of flippant about it in a funny way, you know. It's giving like the same
Cast of
vibes.
Game
It's
of
like,
Thrones.
yes, exactly,
Best
exactly.
season ever.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't expect, never in a million years would I've expected season 5 of Stranger Things to be any good at all. But I just think it's such a fascinating, I don't know,
It's gonna be
like
so funny, like because Kyler mentioned she likes exactly one Kate Bush song. If like I know they won't do this because they're not good enough writers to think about how this would just be kind of funny. But wouldn't it be great if like the second that the track on the tape changes to the next Kate Bush song, she wakes up and it's just like, oh yeah, I like that one too.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny.
it's just lame, man. It's just really, really lame.
It's a really
Uh,
lame show. I just find it really fascinating as like just a product of this time
yeah.
period of this sort of like glut of streaming content.
Oh my God,
And
Mike, like the littlest sister of Mike and Nancy, the one who was like a real little child in the first season. She's now an actual player in the story, of course, because she's being visited by an imaginary friend that nobody else can see. They're all aware of it, right? And this imaginary friend is telling her things like, oh, yeah, by the way, there are like demons and monsters that are coming to eat kids like you, right? And not a single one of the cast, the main group, thinks, hey, maybe that is the evil, psychic, manipulative psychopath who we've been hunting for the past 18 months every time we go into the Upside Down. Maybe that's the key to finding him. They just don't even consider that could be an option. Which, like, I don't know. That just
it's peak fire. That's what
eh,
I'm hearing.
it just feels so thrown together. And they're
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, we gotta end it. We gotta end it quick. Yeah, but
Oh,
don't recommend it.
I have this. I mean, I could be wrong. I have the strong feeling that when they try to put the finale in theaters, it's going to perform so badly the Netflix will be like, "See, I told you. That's why we'd never put anything in theaters ever again." Oh, well, it's I don't know. What a time to be alive. Anyway, that's just a little bit about Stranger Things because what a show, what a product of the times, and what a cultural touchstone
Yeah,
Stranger Things is.
what an
But
interesting blip on the overall media landscape.
yeah,
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 we'll talk
I think
eventually about
it feels like the
Frankenstein.
end of an era in a
Yeah,
good way.
we'll talk eventually about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein because boy, do I
Yeah, we'll
have a
get to
lot to
that
say about that too.
about the first
Only
20
about the
minutes.
first 20 minutes so far. Yeah. Oh boy.
But it
Ooh.
but I think what the videos we're going to be responding to on the 14th, the next time we stream, relevant to this current era of film and television. I think there'll be a lot to say about it. So join us then for that. And until then, have a good week, have a
Yeah,
good 2 weeks, and all that sort of stuff. Thank you very much for your contributions in chat
as
and
always.
for the super chats. We appreciate them. And we'll see you next time.
Sure will.
Unless you have anything else to say, Hugh,
Nope.
now's your chance,
Nope.
or forever hold your peace. All right, goodbye, friends. Thanks for joining us. Short stream a day. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Toodaloo.